Hello and welcome to Casual Buddhism. I'm so happy to be here with you tonight. I'm Cindy Rossico, your host and author of Finding Venerable Mother. And I'm joined here every week with Venerable Dhammananda Bhikkhuni, who is the first fully ordained Theravada nun in Thailand. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar, Casual Buddhism welcomes people from all walks of life to explore their spiritual practice in conversation with Venerable. And tonight we have a special guest, my friend Veena Rao, and she is an award-winning journalist and author. Her debut novel, which I read and highly recommend, Purple Lotus, is a Georgia Author of the Year 2021 finalist and the winner of She Writes Press STEP Scholarship for 2020.
Wonderful,
Yay.
Wonderful, yes.
This is also amazing. She is the founder, publisher, and editor-in-chief of NRI Pulse, an Atlanta-based news publication. She has been recognized in the Limca Book of Records, the Indian version of the Guinness Book of Records, as the first Indian woman to edit and publish a newspaper outside the U.S.
Veena, is Limca? Limca is the name of a drink, no?
Yes.
Limca. I remember Limca. Yeah.
Yes, very popular in India.
Yes. So I'm overjoyed to read a very short, brief biography about you and your work, particularly as a woman. And, we have heard some feminists long time ago saying that women must write. And you are one of the expression, Now we in this generation, we have to write. And apart from writing, the success that you have done, it's wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you so much. And it's such a blessing and a privilege and an honor to talk to you today. Thank you so much, Cindy, for having me on Casual Buddhism.
Yes, and I'm not sure, usually we have the guest ask a question, and I'm pretty sure, Veena, you have some questions you'd like to ask Venerable.
Otherwise I ask her a question.
And you can ask, back and forth.
Yes. So Venerable, my first question is, as kids growing up in India, we used to read the Jataka tales.
Yes.
Which is, it was very popular among kids. It was in comic form. And it's basically stories of the Buddha in his past lives as the Bodhisattva, correct? So knowingly or unknowingly, we imbibe some of the moral values of justice and wisdom and compassion.
Yes.
So my question is, what are the basic principles of Buddhism? If you could talk about it in a few words.
Yes. Thank you so much. The Jataka tales, to tell you the truth, it's the root. Some of the stories are not basically Buddhism. It comes from Isapa, from the old stories that we have read. And it even Ram and Lakshman is also in the Jatakas. So not necessary that Jataka is literally the previous birth of the Buddha. It is part of it is the Buddha's past life, but also collection of the stories of old. Yes. So coming back to your question, Buddhism is very simple. Buddhism speaks about very, very simple message about our everyday experience that we are in this world with suffering. As long as we have our body, we have suffering from the body. But this suffering from the body, dukkha, suffering from the body, apart from it is a suffering of the mind. The suffering of the body we cannot escape as long as we have the body. But how do we handle this suffering in the mind? Lots of our suffering is our self-made suffering, because in this thinking process you tend to add things to it. Sometimes information comes ABC, but you add XYZ to it, and the part that make you suffer so much is that part which you have added to the factual things that you have received. I just give you one very simple example, like, a woman, somebody gave her a call and say that, oh, I saw your husband walking with his secretary at lunchtime. This is very simple fact. It is fact, very simple fact. But already the wife, sitting at home is imagining the worst thing that could happen to her husband. That part is a suffering that is caused by our own thinking, our own making up things. So Buddhism deals with this for us to recognize, to separate fact from that which comes from our thinking process, and just to be simply with what is real. Suffering from the body is also two levels. Suffering from the pain of whatever you are suffering from, that is one level. The second level is you add up to that suffering by worrying about it. So Buddhism talks about that we cannot escape suffering from the body because we are in the body, but we can master that part of suffering which we actually literally make it up, which we literally imagine the worst. That part, if we recognize the reality of things as they are, looking at things as they are, then that added suffering is not necessary. So I think this is very important for each one of us. Don't imagine things to its worst.
Right.
Pain, physical pain is there. To
Physical
ठीक है. In India, you would say ठीक है. We have this body, so we suffer with this pain.
Exactly.
But we don't have to be worrying about this pain, whether it's going to increase, whether it's going to this, whether it's going to go that. By simply noting, simply understanding the reality of things as such. Buddhism always talk about things as such, as it is, the nature of
To
things
take
as it
things
is.
as it is. Okay.
Yes,
To
yes,
take things as it is and not worry
yes,
about it. Yes.
yes,
Yes, that's wonderful. And you've also always said that the Buddha was the first feminist.
yes,
Is that right? Yeah. So can you
yes,
talk a little bit about that?
yes. Uh, Yesterday somebody was talking to me, asking me about this feminism in Thailand. Uh, the first batch of feminists in my country are mostly kind of Western feminists, with what you call the mentality of white feminist, and they really do not accept Buddhism. They think that Buddhism is actually belittling women, so they kind of throw the baby with bath, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm coming from Buddhist background as academic, so I am trying to show to them that within Buddhism, the teaching is so great that the feminists themselves can be strengthened by the Buddhist teaching. So I come from that aspect, and particularly my core interest is introducing the ordination of women. So I search and research to find that it is the Buddha who allow us this ordination. So why are you stopping us from ordination when the Buddha himself gave us this ordination? And the reason behind him allowing us for ordination was he recognized that women can also be enlightened. This is the very first message if you study a world religion as such. Buddhism was the very first one to actually open the space of recognition for women's spiritual enlightenment. So to me, as an academic, I was very interested to say and to keep saying that the Buddha is the first feminist to recognize and to come out and speak very clearly that women can be enlightened. And because women can be enlightened, that's why he gave permission for them to join the order, to lead the lifestyle just like the men. So that was such a big step, It was such a big step, and it was a golden phrase for me for me to step in
And I
to
think it's so
this world.
fascinating that
Yeah.
so many centuries ago, I believe it was Gautami, the aunt and foster mother of the Buddha,
Yes,
who was the
yes,
first woman to receive ordination. Is that
yes,
right? Yeah. And it's
yes.
so fascinating that women had that kind of stature
Imagine.
uh, back in Buddha's time.
Can
Was
you
it?
imagine? Yeah.
Yes, yes, that's amazing. But what was the status of women in general back in that time? And how has it changed since then?
Yes, I read Ambedkar's work. You know, he actually he was coming back from Manu Dharma Shastra, but Dharma Shastra, even though it was written something like 1,000 years after Buddhism, but nevertheless, it is a reflection of the status of women in India in the Buddha's time. You know how women were treated like. Sumbat na asset property. Yeah, like property of men. You know, it's up to the men what to do with women. When you think about getting married, it's never done by the women themselves. You know, it's done by the father. You know, the mother would arrange everything for her, as though she doesn't have her own will, as though she doesn't have her own heart. You know, she's just
That
like
still
one
happens.
property,
Look at
to be given to something like that. You know, so and it was the Buddha. Once when the Buddha allowed the space for women to come forward to be ordained, she didn't have to get married. It is not, you know, an unmarried woman. If you organize some kind of function, they don't invite in single, unmarried person, because it's inauspicious, you know. And if a woman lost her husband, she is even more inauspicious, you know. This was the kind of treatment that women in India face. So when the Buddha came out to say that women can join the order, women can be enlightened, this really cut across all the obstacles that bind the women, both their hands and their feet, to the family, you know. So to me, I think it is a very strong message. But the Buddha's message must be contrasted with what was before. Then you really understand and appreciate what the Buddha did. And I underline again and again that the Buddha was the first feminist for me.
That's wonderful. Unfortunately, things have continued to remain the same in India. And even today, in several parts of India, a woman does not have the freedom to go out
No,
and marry somebody of her own choice. And she cannot go out if she's a widow, if she's lost a husband, she still cannot go out and
I know.
participate in weddings and religious occasions, which is
Yes,
very sad. But the society is changing slowly, hopefully.
yes, yes. You know,
Yes.
I grew up in
So
India.
in your
Yeah, I grew up in India
You
in
grew up in India.
1960s. Yes, so I realized that how women were still so kept far behind the what you call, what the Buddha had allowed. You know how through this more than 2,600 years, nothing changed much for women in India.
Or elsewhere in the world, in so many other places, even here in the United States, in so many
Yeah.
ways, right?
Yes.
Yes. So you just mentioned your association with India, and I believe you also got your undergraduate degree and your PhD from India. So what are your impressions of the country?
Oh, I love India. I love India, you know, to be a Thai person, to be a Buddhist. India is our root. And unless and until we understand our root, you do not understand yourself fully as a person. So since 1980, apart from my study, you know, I studied in 1962. After that, 1980 to present, I went back to India every year, except
Wow.
COVID. Except
Oh.
COVID. But otherwise, I go back to India every year.
So
Yeah.
where do you go in India?
Wherever I was invited.
Okay.
But if I don't get invitation, then I would take a tour, I would lead a tour to the Buddhist sites. I never had enough of the Buddhist sites, Every time when I go there, I always learn, I always experience something different from my previous experience. So it is still my learning process.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Yes, but Venerable, I have to ask, are there any Buddhist values left in the world?
Yes, we have to hope for that, We really have to hope for that, even among monastics, we were talking about this Sama Ajiva, right livelihood. Among us monastics, are we sincere in our livelihood? Are we sincere in our commitment to be monastic, Even the monastics, not to talk about others, even the monastics have to question themselves to see the reality in our life. And I have to say, even among monastics, sometimes when you join the order, they get swayed from the original path. Because within monastic lifestyle, there is also that, when people have so much faith in you, so much offering come your way, and that is the way, if you're not true to your practice, you get stuck. And it becomes a real issue, a real problems so that we are not able to walk the path intended to us by the Buddha.
Right. And, we live in a very divided world, in a very troubled world. Um, how would we heal? What according to you are some of the things we need to do to heal the world and bring the world together?
Yes, very simple. When we stop and ask ourselves, happiness kaha hai? Yeah, this happiness, we always seek happiness, traveling the globe to look for happiness. Happiness is right here. It is right here, We cannot seek for happiness outside. If you seek for happiness outside, it is not real. The real happiness is here. Happiness is a quality of the mind. And we have to begin within ourselves. And Buddhist teaching has much for us to kind of opening up layers of ourselves to be able to really find that true happiness within ourselves.
But how can one be happy or detached when there's so much suffering
Yes,
around
yes,
you?
yes. Sometimes, when we become activists and we are not rooted, we are not strongly rooted in our own practice, we ourselves get how to say, we sunk in the suffering of others. So therefore, while we are helping others, this is out of the attitude of no self, you're not clinging to yourself. That's why you are doing for others. But at the same time, we ourselves must be strengthened. We ourselves must have the root within ourselves to be able to help others the best way you can. But if you are in a situation that you cannot do, Buddhism teaches you to upekha, equanimity, equanimity. But what we find among the Buddhists, they always jump into upekha, jump into equanimity without doing anything, that is a wrong attitude. Of course, we have to start with metta, karuna, loving kindness and compassion. Unless you have done that and you are not successful because of the other part is not helping, and you are not able to do it, only then you become equanimity. You remain calm and peaceful within yourself. But first, we have to start with loving kindness and we have to start compassion. Many people just simply said, "Oh, that's too bad. I cannot do anything." Have you done it? I have to ask them, have you done it? Have you done anything to help to right the wrong, so to say? Often we have not done anything and we are just simply hiding behind the Buddhist teaching, saying that, oh, upekha, we cannot help.
Yeah.
Like your book, your book, Purple Lotus.
Purple.
Yes, I have not read it, but as I understand, it is one of the ways to actually help heal the women out there who might have suffered the same way as the story that you offered in the book. So this is also helping. This is also reaching out for people who have been through the same kind of experience. Very important, very important. We do from where we are. We do
That
from
makes
where
me
we
so
are.
happy to hear you say that. Thank you. Okay, one last question. Somebody recently asked the Dalai Lama this question, and I thought it was a simple but very profound question. What is at the core of my identity? Who
Yes,
am I?
yeah. The core of our identity, to realize that core, which we think it is our identity, is actually Maya, illusion, is actually illusion. So we learn to let go of I, me, my, mine, that very much bind us to suffering, yes. But of course we have to start with I. To do something good, you have to have that I. But eventually that I also has to be given up, but in ultimate sense. In Hinduism, I like in Hinduism when they teach you that, when you do something good, you cannot help but think that this is your how to say, the result of your work. You feel happy with this work, but don't cling to it. If you cannot help, at least offer this work to God. You see, in Hinduism, it also has a technique for us to handle our achievement. Don't hold to it as my achievement. It is for the happiness of the women. But but it's my work. This Purple Lotus is my work. Offer that achievement to God. So this is from the Hindu context, which I think it also works.
So basically just stay detached to everything, even your
Yes.
own achievements.
Yes, be attached so that you achieve. But
Yes.
once you achieve the goal, then be detached.
Be detached. That's wonderful. Um, I'm through with all my questions, and I really, really enjoyed talking to you, Venerable. And I hope to meet you someday. Maybe I'll come over with Cindy.
Yes.
Yes.
We're planning a trip, maybe not this year, maybe, but I have to talk to you.
Nice.
Veena. I'm not sure.
Yes, yeah. Veena, I'm so happy to meet you, and Cindy, very grateful that you actually made this possible for Veena and myself to meet.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for watching. Please join us every week here, and if you would like to contact me, please reach me at cindyrosico.com, my website. Simple. So thank you both. It was a very enriching conversation.
Thank you so much. This is such a pleasure and a blessing.